So about a year ago, I came down right here to Sata Hip to the Naval Yard, and I caught a ferry, a great big ship, and we went all the way down to Songkhla. It was the maiden voyage, and it was a fun time. However, that route became commercially inviable, and shortly thereafter it was canceled. Long story short, it's back up running. But this time, it's the same ship, but we're going to Koh Samui. So let's get on and go. Hey folks, and welcome back to Pattaya. Actually, a short distance from Pattaya. We're in the Sata Hip Naval Yard, and we're going to get on this guy right here, the great big seahorse ferry. Now, we've been on this before last year, but everything's changed. The route has changed. There's a lot new in the ship. I'll tell you all about that, and it's actually, I believe, performing a different role. So, we'll get into all that, but first we got to go in and get our ticket and get registered, so let's go. We got all loaded up. There's already about 5 or 6 bikes on board, and I don't know, maybe a dozen cars or something. But there's supposed to be about 60 passengers on this maiden voyage. Now, if you follow the channel, you'll remember last year we were on the same ship. It's called the Blue Dolphin. The Blue Dolphin, it's run by a company called Seahorse Ferries. And it's a ferry. You can hold, I think, 150 cars. I gave the specs last time, but the cargo hold in the bottom of the ship is huge. And you could drive big trucks in there and so forth. And it's a ferry. However, since the big long trip to Songkhla wasn't commercially enough viable, and it's now relegated to going to Koh Samui, which is more of a tourist destination, I think the dichotomy of this has changed a little bit from a ferry to a cruise. So I'll explain what I mean by that briefly. So let's say you come to Pattaya and you're there for a couple weeks and you want a little change of scenery. This leaves, well, right now on a Thursday night. I believe it's going to change to a Friday night, but we'll see. The schedule right now is Thursday. It's a Thursday afternoon. Leaves Thursday afternoon at 5, arrives Koh Samui Friday morning, 7:30, and then leaves Koh Samui to come back to Sata Hip here on Saturday evening. So you get all of Friday night, and most of Saturday in Koh Samui, and then you're another moonlight cruise back to Pattaya, well, back to Sata Hip, which is only 25 minutes, half hour to Pattaya. So it's more of a excursion, I believe. It's more of a tourist destination. Sure, there'll be people bringing cars, vehicles, bikes, but it's not the whole purpose of the ship to move cargo vis-a-vis vehicles. I think it's just as much about moving people to their next tourist destination. To facilitate this and to make it more of a cruise, they've changed some things. And this deck was green or blue, I think, before. It's gray now, so they've painted, but there's a lot of little changes like that. And I think we'll just go take a look, cut right to the chase, and take a look at the biggest one right now. This is probably the biggest single thing that's new. All of this upper deck has been transformed into a restaurant, bar, lounge, party deck, whatever you want to call it. But that kind of falls hand in glove with the moonlight cruise, moonlight party cruise that I described. This was just all steel. It was a steel, flat steel deck. In fact, it looked like about as big as a football field, even though it isn't. It just looked barren and wide open. I believe it was painted green. They've put indoor-outdoor carpet. They've built a whole wooden stage, platform steps, little plateaus, everything, bar, a stage. I'll show you around here. But this is where you could just stay and eat, drink, and be merry for the trip over to Koh Samui. Now, by rights, you can buy your ticket, and you could just pull up a chair like this guy here, sit here at the edge and, I don't know, eat and drink the night away in your chair. If there's a band, I don't know. Or you can get accommodation, and we'll talk about those. Those are almost the same as last time. A couple little changes. Now, here's the big thing about what's going on up here. Remember I told you food, drink, restaurant, yada yada. Well, the ship itself isn't the one putting that on. They've partnered with a company that does that. The ship, they know how to move the ship and fuel the ship and all that. They don't know much about serving food and drink. So they've hired this or partnered with this other company who determined, well, it's only 60, 70 passengers. That's not enough to make it worth our while, so we're bailing. I don't know what they're going to do for food and drink service. He says they'll get by. I know the captain, he's a great guy, and they always have hiccups like this and they work through them. So we'll see what happens. Now here's the thing. It's not going to bother me. It's not going to bother me by the slightest, because the food and drink is not, it's not exactly wholesale on here. It's an expensive proposition. The beers, the drinks, the food, it's all, let's just say, close to 3 times higher than you would pay in the mainland. So I usually just eat in the middle of the day, and I brought a snack with me and a little liquid refreshment for the evening, and I'm good to go. Apart from some ice, I thought I would get some ice here for my cocktail, but that's all I need, and I think they can still accommodate that. I don't know. They still may be able to cook and produce some food and drink service. I don't know. We'll see. And as the cruise progresses, we'll see what happens. But we're still in the dock waiting for everybody to get on. I'm just trying to go through here before it gets loud, busy. There's a high chance there could be music playing up here, even if there's not a band. But that would be the that would be where the band is, right up there. So let's go and we'll see what else is new. So how much does this all cost, and is that something that makes sense if you're wanting a little trip to Koh Samui? Now keep in mind, you don't have to come back on Sunday, or I'm sorry, on Saturday night. You could stay until the next sailing back, which would be a week later. So you could stay up to, what would that be, 8-9 days, okay? Or you can just do what I'm doing, go down, spend a day and a half, come back. But how much does it cost? So I paid total round trip to Samui and back, $9,500. Now that includes me, that includes my bike, and I brought the big bike. It would have cost me, I think, 1,000 baht less, either 1,000 baht less one way or both ways, I don't know, if I would have brought my smaller bike, because I think the cutoff is 400 cc's. So if you have a bike that's under 400 cc's, then that's about 1,000 baht cheaper. It also includes a pod, or what they call comfort class. I call it a pod. You guys might call it something else. Let me know what you called this if you were ever in the Navy. But it's a little bunk. Not too big of a bunk, but it's a bunk, and it's got a pillow, and it's got a little mattress and a sheet, and I can get some sleep in there, and it's all mine. So I think that's in the neighborhood of 3,000 or 32. That includes your ticket, whatever accommodation you choose. Now you don't have to choose an accommodation. You can just buy a ticket and sit in one of the deck chairs up there, or you can buy a lounge chair. They have very nice lounge chairs in the lobby around different places of the ship. They recline. You could actually maybe sleep in one of those, or you can get a room. Now last time I had a room. If you want to see what my room looked like last time, I'll post a video up here. It's going to be basically the same, but just me, and I thought I'd go on the cheap. Now I checked flight prices. A flight from Bangkok to Koh Samui, round trip, I think was over 8,000 baht. And you still got to get to and from Bangkok from Pattaya. It's at least 1,000 baht each way. So this is cheaper. And when you get down there, you got wheels. You don't have to rent some scooter without brakes and bald-headed tires. Or you could take even your car. Now the car would be more. I just, like I said, I took a bike. The higher you go up in vehicle size, the more expensive your ticket gets, obviously. But I think in terms of going to Samui and flying, now driving, it's a long drive to Koh Samui from Pattaya, going through Bangkok, big boring ride down the west coast. And then you still got the ferry, 600 baht to get your vehicle and yourself, and 2-hour ride from Surat Thani to Samui. So there's no free lunch either way. I think in dollars and cents, the cheapest would be to drive, but it would take as long, if not long, it would take longer to drive than this ship's going to take. And when you arrive, you're not ready to pull your hair out. So anyway, it's not for everybody, but it's going to be an option. I hope it works. So it was quite a long shove off compared to the last trip. I had a little bit of a deja vu from last year with the sun setting and the tugboat churning and all that. I came up to the top deck. I did notice there's a place that has a power outlet, so I might just very well sit up here and plug my laptop in and do some work. There's a lady here, a service lady to sell beer, and she recognized me from the squid boat. We went out on a squid boat, and she remembered me from the squid boat. So anyway, there's a lovely lady here serving beer, and it's a great sunset, and we're officially shoved off. So I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow when we get into Koh Samui. Doing it 7:30. If anything eventful happens over the evening, I'll film it. There's only supposed to be about 60 passengers, but it looks like mostly couples and kids, families. So probably be a quiet night at sea.
Many hours later.
It's the next day, the next afternoon, and things didn't quite work out the way I envisioned. I'd like to be able to say welcome to Koh Samui, but I'm right back here in Pattaya, Lake Maprachan right behind me. They apparently, after we shoved off, a generator malfunctioned, and long story short, they tried to fix it a couple hours and just got to the point where it wasn't happening, and they deemed it too dangerous to proceed. There's redundant systems on these ships, but once one goes, then there goes your redundancy, and if the other one goes, it could be a very dark cruise. Since I came back to Pattaya, there's a grand opening today. I'll show you. Right out here on the lake, a nice little afternoon place with a pool. Cheap drinks, I think 45 baht Tiger beers and buy one, get one. Bar cocktails from 4 to 7. Nice little place out here. Dollhouse Dark Side. I'll show you around a little bit while I talk. But from experience dealing with these things, I think they handled it well at the ship. Sometimes things do happen that's out of your control. It's what you do to make a bad situation better. They offered to let people sleep on the ferry because some people had already been up there 2-3 hours drinking in the restaurant and everything. They gave free drinks, they gave free food, and offered immediate refunds of the entire fare. I personally just said roll mine over, I'll be back next week on the next sailing. But that's how it goes sometimes. So change your plans. You just never know. You just never know what'll happen. And I'm disappointed, but I'll be back, put it that way. Anyway, I'm gonna go over here and maybe enjoy a little afternoon dip in the pool.
So there you go. You never know what's going to happen. You always have to be flexible, especially when traveling. I've been on airplanes before, the same thing has happened. You just never know when a mechanical issue is going to kind of leave you. But anyway, we've got to always make the best of a bad situation. There's plenty else to do in Pattaya. As soon as the ship does sail, I hope they get the issues corrected soon. As soon as it does sail, I'll be back and we'll go to Koh Samui. I'm really curious to see how the whole procedure goes, docking there and getting back on the whole 9 yards. But always something else to do in Pattaya in the meantime. So for this episode, I'm going to have to go ahead and leave it off right here.
And as usual, I'll thank you for watching. And until next time, bye for now.